Yes, people, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. That intro gets longer and longer in my mind. I'm going to have to change that and do like 5-second intros or something just to let you get ready with a bounce. How's everyone doing? Welcome back. I hope everyone's happy and healthy doing the things they love to do. Bugsy's out pursuing squirrels. Are you on Squirrel Watch? Whatever that looks like for you, make sure it's a success. Guys, I'm with no one else other than George from Football Terrace fame, but also Tottenham fame. He's the man who was always wearing, what are they called? Do-rags. I'm not sure what they're called.
Do-rags. Yes,
always wearing
do-rags.
Exactly, mate. How are you, buddy? Welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, no, I'm doing amazing, man. It's good to finally be back on the channel. It's something we've been planning for a long time, but we finally got it in the works. And it's, to be honest, it's a perfect week just to get it started. Off the bounce of a good start to the season, and we all know what comes up on Sunday. So, feels good to be back.
Mate, it's great to have you. Just, guys, this is the first, like Jordan was saying there, alluding to my internet. You guys are all familiar with how bad my internet's been. It's been the reason why I haven't been doing too many live streams at all. But this has been a weekly show that we haven't done yet, and we're 5 weeks into the season. This is the first of many. Smash a like. I'm going to say straight off the bat, get yourself over, because I know that George is going to be starting his own Tottenham channel at some point in the near future, and I look forward to helping him with that, and I want you guys to all get over there. But whilst he hasn't quite got around to doing that yet, I need you to do me a favor. Where you can find him is on Twitter, at twitter.com or x.com/_4George. So hit that link. It will take you away and go and show some love to George. We got so much to talk about, guys. So much so, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments that I'm just going to spin through quickly and say hello to as many of the members as I can, because that's part of the package. I do apologize if you're not a member, but we've got so much to get through and only an hour and 15 or so to get through it. So I'm going to say morning, Adrian. Good afternoon. Good to see you, mate. We're going to be talking about Brennan Johnson and everything what's happening, obviously, with PERISIC. It's a sad day for him. Sad day for Tottenham. We knew there was going to be injuries coming. The first one is here, and it is PERISIC. And I think it probably couldn't have happened at a worse time because of the kind of byproduct impact, the indirect benefits or lack thereof that are going to affect not just him, not just Tottenham, but maybe also players like Richarlison. So we have to talk about that. Good to see you, Adrian. Good to see you too, Americanka. She says she's so sad. Time to start drinking. A girl after my own heart. You know we like it. You know we like it on this channel. Jessica's here as well. No to Sancho, Tosin and Orban. Yes, Jota rather than Sancho. I don't know why we're talking about these guys yet. We're going to get to that maybe, but there was nothing about that in the thumbnail. Nothing about that in the thumbnail, Jess. Good to see you, though. Joe's Olsen House, the talk was that he may be moving on in January as part of the Vescovic deal, 100%. And that's probably not going to happen now, right? Because why would you take on someone who's, the latter stages of his career has just ruined his ACL? We're going to talk about that. Who else have I got to say hello to that's a member of the channel? Inacoma's here as well. Big up, Inacoma. Good to see you. As is Dave Hamilton. As is Dave H. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. Right, we're going to get straight into it. Obviously, the big news of the day, George. We're going to be talking about the North London derby, and we're going to be talking about the Levy comments, the answers to Levy questions at the forum. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about the impact of the sad news that is Ivan Perisic has torn his ACL. He will miss the next 5 to 6 months, as Tottenham confirm. Perisic is a fantastic professional who will now work hard to be back and help Spurs in March, April, then Euro 2024 with Croatia. Feeling he can do it, wishing him a speedy recovery. Indeed, Fabrizio. George, I mean, how much of a devastation is this to him? Do you really think he's going to be back for the second half of the season or late stages?
I do. I really do. I feel like if there's any player that you're going to look at in the last... Yeah. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a bit. I think there's a bit of a delay, mate. Sorry. That's all.
Okay. So I feel like if we're talking about any player that's in the last stages of their career that's prepared for an injury and someone that's going to have a speedy recovery, I do think it will be Perisic. It's definitely a huge blow. Like you said, I feel like out of all the players this season that's been utilized off the bench and he's been made a real impact, it has been Perisic. He's, like you said, he's experienced. He technically on the ball, being able to use his left, use his right, and he's set up a few assists. So he's been massive for us. He's been massive for us so far this season, and it's going to be a huge blow. But if there is any player that's going to be able to come back, I do think it's going to be Perisic. And at those latter stages of the season, when we're going to be potentially in the race for top four, or it could be a late FA Cup run, whatever it is. We're going to need all the bodies we can have, and Perisic is going to be a massive player for us to come back. So I'm definitely going to be looking forward to him come back. It's a big loss, but like you said, I do think it frees up the opportunity for some of our youngsters to shine, and with the likes of Brian Hill coming back very soon, it's an opportunity for him to get into the first team and show what he can do.
Yeah, for me personally, I worry. I know he's a superb professional and his body is probably healthier than a lot of 23-year-olds out there. Certainly, he's a lot healthier than I am, relatively the same age. That's a given. What I would say, though, is obviously when you do get to that age, no matter how healthy you are, your body takes a little bit longer to heal. So I worry whether or not he is going to make it. But I really hope that he hasn't played his last game in a Tottenham shirt. I'm very hopeful he can get back, and I think he'll still be able to take part in the Croatia thing. Maybe that might be his swan song. We'll find out. One other person, though, that this is going to massively and materially impact, George, is Richarlison. I think a lot of people, myself included, have been talking about this kind of double substitution option that we have off the bench. There's no point in playing Perisic unless you're going to play Richarlison, because Sonny's never going to head the ball. Perisic does have that wonderful ability to cross, put the ball on a sixpence, but Richarlison's the only guy who can head the ball really in our front line. And if Richarlison is terrible or isn't quite as competent, I'll be easier on him with the ball at his feet, then does Perisic's absence for the next 7 months, does that likely impede or damage the value proposition of Richarlison?
I mean, I am of the thought that Richarlison shouldn't be starting for our team. I don't feel like he should be in our best team, be the number one striker, because as we've seen so far, he's not good on the ball. And technically, in the Ange team, you need to be able to bounce the ball off your feet, play one-touch football, and just be able to move the ball at a quick pace. And Richarlison's not able to do that. But I do think that we have many players in our team that are able to cross the ball very good. You have the likes of Pedro Porro on the right side, Kulusevski on the right side. On the left side, I feel like Udogie hasn't been able to flex that ability so far because he's been played a lot more on the inside and hasn't been able to do the overlapping runs as much. But I feel like we do definitely have players that will be able to put the ball on his head and create a lot of chances for him when he does get the chance. But if I'm honest, I don't feel like he should be able to be in our team too tough that it's going to affect our play at all, because he should be used as a sub like he did the other day. I feel like that's the best use for him. Richarlison has a lot of energy. He comes on, he's tenacious. He's going to be running at the back line, and that's what you need in the final 10, 15 minutes of the game, especially when the other players are going to be slowing down. So it is perfect for that type of impact sub. But for him to be starting, it's just not something that I look forward to as a Tottenham fan right now, because we've seen it just hasn't worked. Whenever he's started, he's just lacked that ability to make an impact in the game. It's always, Richarlison's made good runs, but it's never Richarlison's picked up the ball and he's made something happen. He just doesn't have that ability.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Where I was thinking previously that the argument to have someone like Richarlison start occasionally might be against some of the teams that are going to come to the White Hart Lane and stink the place out. I thought Sonny had a really tough evening or tough afternoon against Sheffield United. I don't think he could get into the game. And when they parked that kind of bank of 5, bank of 4, I think Sonny just looked a little bit lost in the 9 role. And against teams like we're playing on Sunday, Arsenal, I think that it's obviously clear as day that Sonny's going to have a lot more space when we get the ball in transition, which is something I can't wait to see. And on that basis, for any of those teams that we're playing that are going to come out and play against us, whether home or away, Sonny's the obvious option. I'm not saying that Sonny isn't the right candidate for all of the low block teams, but specifically some of them that are a little bit tougher, a little bit bigger. Teams like Everton that have got monsters, across the pitch, like Tarkowski, Onana, Decore, those sorts of big, strong, physical guys. I think there might have been more of a stronger argument in the home legs to start with a Richie, but I then would have also supplemented that by having Perisic maybe start the game as well. I do like what you're saying, though, about the idea of Udogie. We know he can cross the ball. We saw it with Udinese last year, but he hasn't really been given the role to do that too much because he's been asked to do this inverted fullbacks. Do you think that maybe this might force Ange Postecoglou then to tweak some of the overall system and give Udogie more of a freedom to overlap and maybe go with just the one inverted fullback? Or how do you see that sort of planning out?
Definitely. I feel like on the left side, when we know that we haven't got Perisic, we're going to be lacking that crossing ability on the left side, or just lacking his presence. I feel like it's something that he will look into maybe later on in the games. I don't feel like we'll ever start with Udogie ever doing the overlapping role, but later on in the games, I think it's definitely something he's going to be telling him, because we know that he is very good attacking with the ball at his feet. He's a good dribbler. He's someone that can take a player down the line and put a good ball into the box. So once he starts getting the opportunities and starts building into it, I think he will start to do that. But to be honest, I've got no complaints with the role that he's doing right now. For me, he's been one of the best left backs so far this season. He's been fault free. I haven't seen anything where I've looked at and been like, that's a bit shaky. He's looked like a seasoned player, someone that's come into the Premier League and hasn't had no problems, no worries, and he's playing like a player that's way years above his age. So I'm looking forward to this season, just watching him and build further on, to be honest.
100%, mate, 100%. So with this Perisic injury, whether or not that there's a tactical switch up with Udogie giving him more license, what do you see happening with regard? Do you expect this to be the same starting 11? We'll talk about the North London derby specifically in a minute, so don't go into too much detail. But just in terms of the first person that's going to benefit from this, do you see it being Brennan Johnson being given minutes, and if so, how, where on the pitch is he going to be offered those minutes? Is somebody else that, Brian Hill, like you said, is not too far away? Who is going to step up from the first team to kind of take that opportunity for, if we do need to replace Solomon on the left at 60 minutes, 70 minutes, how do you see Ange going about that?
I think it's going to be Johnson. I do think Johnson and Richie, it's going to be either of those. But I think the way Johnson performed the other day when he came on and had that bright spark, I feel like he's probably going to be the player to come on and be the go-to guy. Maybe slot him down the middle, push Sonny out on the left sometimes, or it can be, let's see how he goes on the left, or put Richie on the left, Johnson down the middle. If Sonny's not having a good game, make a double sub, because we've seen that Ange is open to making a few subs at the same time. So I think it's going to be a few players that's benefit, but mainly at this moment in time, it's going to be Solomon. Solomon's going to see a lot more minutes on the left wing, the way that Son's playing in the middle, and we just need to see a bit more from him, I'd say, going forward. I do like what he's bringing to the team, but I just want to see a little bit more end product. But he's been good. He has been good so far.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with him. Free transfer. I put it down initially. I thought the transfer was just Levy doing good business, looking for a freebie that, if he can offer value, perfect, but he's probably going to be good enough to maybe sell on in a year or two's time and make a cheap 20 million or something. So that's where I was seeing the kind of business side of Levy's decision there. But actually, he's really surprised me on the upside. I think he's been slow to get into games, but a little bit sloppy in certain moments in the first half. But as the second half, much like the Tottenham team overall, to be honest, we build into these games, and he seems to be someone that once he's warmed up, he seems to be, quite dangerous. I do want to ask you, though, sort of moving towards, there's a lot of rumours. I've been doing a lot of stories that are coming out of the press with regards the January window. I think most Tottenham fans think that the absolute priority is a centre-back. I wouldn't disagree. I don't know if you will. But on top of that, does this Perisic injury change anything? Someone in the comments there was saying it was rumoured. It was rumoured. It's true that we got Vescovic in with the other way. Maybe Perisic was going to leave in January and go back to Hijack split. I don't know. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen anymore. So is there now a need for us to kind of go again in January, maybe push up the move if there is one for Eberechi Esse, who can play off the left? And we've heard about Lo Celso maybe also being unhappy at the moment, wants to leave as well. So we're going to need someone who can play deputy to Maddison or compete with Maddison in the centre, and also maybe on the left to replace Perisic. For me, someone like Eze can do both of those in a wonderful, wonderful role. So just wondering whether or not you think that the January plans, whatever they were to look like, maybe have been reprioritized a little bit as a consequence of the Perisic injury.
Definitely. I do think that we're going to have to look at signing some big players, because especially, I think, I don't know how you felt at the end of the summer transfer window. I do think it was just a bit underwhelming at the end with us missing, like you say, a few of those big key signings. And like I said, I think the centre-back is going to be key. I feel like that's one player we just need to get out of the way, because right now we're lucky we've had no injuries, and I pray that we don't up until throughout the season we get no centre-back injuries. But if we do lose Romero, even if it's a red card, any suspensions, whatever it is, losing Romero or Van de Ven for a couple games, you're going to see it's going to have a big impact on our team, because we know, bring Eric Dyer in, he makes mistakes every single time. He's going to make a mistake, or he's going to be at fault for a goal, and that's not a question. So we really can't afford to bring those types of players into the first team. So the centre back's going to be key. And then, like you said, Eberichi I think it'd be a key signing, a big signing, but I don't feel like it's a move that we could probably make in January, just because he's probably not going to be looking to come into our team and be a starter instantly, and it'd probably take away from his game. And I feel like for his development, it'd probably be better for him to stay at Crystal Palace until the end of the season, and then we could look at it again in the summer. But with regards to signing another midfielder, I think it's something we could look at doing. But when Ben scores back, I feel like our midfield's actually going to look like a very good and midfield that's got quite a bit of depth. And because we haven't seen him come back and play into this team and take our midfield to another level, which I believe it will, I feel like our team will look a bit better. And we may have to look at signing a striker. And personally, I'd look at Ivan Toney. I think we should be looking at getting a good striker, someone that can score some goals and start to put us forward for the next couple of years, because we know that Richie's not going to be the guy. And he's turning 30, 31. So he's not a player that we can look at next season to be our striker. So it's something that we need to start planning from January or summer, make it something key.
So Ivan Toney is your ideal number 9, is he, to come in and be that guy?
I do think so. I can't lie. Going off his last season in the Premier League, if we're looking at a player that's similar, I don't feel like it's just because he's similar to Kane, but just the way that he plays and someone that can play in our type of system. I think he's good with the ball at his feet. He's good in the air. He's a goal scorer naturally. And if you're looking at a player that's going to be not too much money, probably looking around 50, 60 million, it's a very good price for a proven goal scorer in the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I've got no problem with it. The only slight issue I have, I don't like players that talk up our rivals like they want to go to, that's their first choice. Yeah, that sort of thing. If you don't, I don't know whether they cut their own nose to spite their face there by saying those sorts of things. If the move doesn't come off, it can put other people off going for it. But you know what? James Maddison allegedly was an Arsenal fan growing up, and he's come in and done wonders for us. So I'm not going to cut my own nose to spite my face if he is the right guy. Personally, I'm a huge advocate of Gift Orban. I just worry about whether or not he is. I don't know what your thoughts are on Orban whilst we're talking about the 9. For me, he's done it wherever he's been, but he hasn't been anywhere that's particularly complicated yet for him. And this season, I know he's been on the bench quite a lot for Ghent, but he hasn't sort of continued that kind of goal a game ratio. Not that anyone would be able to do that for that long, but the rumors were that Tottenham were interested. No official bid was made. I don't know why. Maybe Ghent put the price up too much. What are your thoughts on Orban? He does fit that kind of mold, that criteria that we're going for right now with the likes of Ash Phillips and Verliz and all these sort of younger players. The youth-centric model, Orban fits it. Maybe I do think.
Yeah, no, I do think that he was my number 1 option personally. In the summer, when we were looking at strikers, I was like, all right, let's bring this kid in. He looks like someone that can come in. He's not going to be able to put too much pressure on him. He can be a young player that builds on into the system as the months go on and eventually be the number 1 go-to guy. But I feel like if we're going into next season in January and then summer, I feel like the problem is we can't look at signing a potential striker then, because next season I'm going to be looking at our team going into Champions League and want to do bigger things, challenge on all fronts, and we can't be relying on players with potential in the number 9. I feel like at that point we're going to need an experienced player who can score goals, or a proven goal scorer in the Premier League, or someone that's going to be able to bring us 15 or 20 goals, because we're not going to be able to rely on the likes of Sonny and some of our other wingers at this moment in time that haven't proven to score at that rate, because I believe Sonny's game is going to be coming down a bit. He's not going to be scoring 15 or 20 goals, but he's still going to be able to add to our team, just not at that level.
So on that, are you? I take it you're an advocate of the youth-centric model generally.
Of course, yeah,
but not all the time. It shouldn't be something that you have to stick to, regardless of the circumstance. And to me, I think that I completely agree with you. I'm going to pivot back to the centre backs in a minute, because I do think that's the next the obvious target we have to go for. And on that basis, I'm going to use the same kind of sort of comparison here. I think that the centre back that we should go for to play backup to Romero and Van der Ven shouldn't be a 22-year-old. I think because we've got 2 or 3 wonderful centre backs that are coming through, over the next 2 years. If you go and buy another 23-year-old, all you're going to do is bottleneck that process and end up not giving them the minutes. So if you're going to need someone that's going to step in and do a great job in the event that Romero or Van der Ven get injured for a period this season, then I think that it's smart to open up the book and look at players that are 29, 30, 31, 32, because they're coming in and they can offer different things. They can offer leadership. They can offer some level of maturity in and around the back 5, the back 4. get all the youngsters ready as well, do a kind of dual role. And I wonder if it's the same thing with regards forward. We've got the Liz coming through, right? And so do you want to bottleneck that as well? I don't know if you saw, we'll talk about the Colchester game in a second, but he's not ready. He's clearly not ready yet. But do you want to go and buy a 22, 23-year-old? There is an argument to say probably not, and you're making the argument that we shouldn't be youth-centric all the time. Right, George?
No, I agree. So I feel like in certain positions, especially in the key ones like centre-back, goalkeeper, or centre mid, and the striker, like the spine of your team, you need experience. You need players that are going to be able to, when the going gets tough, they bring you on and they lead the team up. And just like you said, in the centre-back position, I feel like you need someone that can come off the bench when these players are not going to be able, when they're not fit, or when sometimes you need to make a change in the game. You need someone with experience to come on, and that's what Perisic would be. And in the centre-back position, like I said, we should look to sign someone that's later on in their career, but is still a very competent defender, but someone who's experienced being in a winning team or in a winning environment that can come to us and teach these younger players. Because that's the one thing I feel like we're missing a lot of the times with our transfers and signings is, as Tottenham, we don't go for the big players, for the big teams, or players who can breed that winning mentality within the squad. And especially when you have younger teams, you need that in and around it.
Any particular candidate? So if Ivan Toney's your kind of ideal guy in the 9, again, he can be there. He's not particularly old, so he can be there and secure us and get us ready, get that 15, 20 goals. Because like you say, you'd hope if this year finishes out in some sort of similarity to the way it started and we're kind of ahead of expectations. Obviously, I don't think either of us would say, unless you disagree, let me know, but that we're ready for a title challenge now. But if everything goes well this year, you then need Daniel Levy to get us ready next summer with the final few pieces of the jigsaw to go again and to try and really push, right? And so Ivan Toney's your choice of what's available in the 9. Do you have any kind of ideas of who would be your kind of ideal third, like the best of the rest, ready now centre-back to come in case there's an injury?
Centre-backs, I feel like it's a tough one because when you look at the market, I don't feel like there's a lot of centre-backs actually available, or centre-backs that we've personally been looking at that I'd say are going to come into our team and be accepting of that type of role, who want to battle for a backup role or just want to battle with Van der Ven for that type of role. I feel like we're probably just going to have to, it's going to have to be an out-of-the-box signing, someone that you won't usually look at to come and improve the team per se and be like, this is a big signing, but it's going to be someone that plays well for a system, who's good with the ball at their feet, is a competent defender, and has a lot of experience at a high level. There's no one off of the back of my head that I can think of right now, but there's definitely a few players out there that fit the mold. But with regards to strikers, I don't feel like it's just Tony that we would look at. I feel like there is a few other strikers out there in the market, like Vlahovic and some of the other names, but it's one of those things that I feel like if we're looking in January and we can get wrapped up soon, I feel like that's a deal that would be available.
Yeah. Listen, I completely agree. I think Vlahovic would be awesome as well. In terms of the centre backs, I went out of my way to throw a name out to wind people up. Jimmy Cosco's remembered this one. I said Chris Smalling. Look, I'm sorry. I think Chris Smalling is someone that could come in and do a really good job, and he wouldn't cost the world. And he's English, or he's got that heritage. He knows what he could do. I don't know if he'd be too disruptive. But if you're looking at people over the age of 30 that can come in and offer solidarity and not embarrass themselves, there's lots of people. You could maybe go after that Coatesh or Coatesh, or however you say it, from Sporting. You pay them a bit of money. I think he's probably worth 10 million, 8 million quid, but I think he's 32, 30, 33, like a nice little payday, because Sporting have got, a very tight wage structure for, in their system. Nice little payday for him, and he can come in and wouldn't embarrass himself. You got Danilo from Juventus, I think, that could do a similar thing. I don't know if he'd want to. There's loads of them out there, people that are just there for a short time, a good time, not a long time kind of thing. And I think that for me would make sense, because you've got, in the next couple of years, you're going to have Dorrington coming through, who once again just looks head and shoulders, both physically and in terms of technique and talent, ahead of the 21 level. And you've got Ash Phillips, who's obviously the next cab off the rank, probably. He looks really, really solid. And plus, you've got this Voskovic, who's going to be here in 18 months' time. So you don't want to necessarily kind of fill the void. I mean, I don't know. I forget how old Tosin Adarabioyo is. Do you know off the top of your head?
I believe he's 26. He's not an old player. He's fairly young.
Yeah. I mean, I'd still take him, but I just don't want there to be a bottleneck. Okay, so we'll move on from that one, mate. Just whilst we're talking about it, did you happen to see the Colchester game, the under-21s?
I did manage to watch the highlights and get a few of the clips of Alejo. I watched all of his clips and saw how he was. He seemed like he had some really good movement. Vélez. He looked like he had good movement. He had some good few little moments with the ball, but his finishing was, he had two really good chances that I would expect a striker, any striker at any level, to put away. That was disappointing he didn't. But as you said, it's his first game. He's still young. He's still going to be able to take his time to get into the team. And personally, I don't feel like we're going to see him in the first team anytime soon. I feel like it's something that's going to take maybe a year or two to build into.
100%. Yeah, I think he'll be quite a while away. Just before we get into, because I do want to talk about the under-21s just for a few seconds. We've got a super chat here from Blaine Dev. Big up Blaine Dev, massive supporter of the channel, mate. He says, big up Sean, with the unfortunate injury to Perisic, would you promote Iago Santiago to the bench as cover? It's an absolutely perfectly timed question, mate, because this is where I was going to go. You know, Santiago for me is a wonderful talent that has, last year he absolutely set things alight in the under-21s. Yeah, I don't think he hasn't started badly this year. He hasn't continued with quite the same rich vein of form. Maybe he's been overshadowed a little bit by Jamie Donnelly, who's a bit of an enigma we've got there in Jamie Donnelly, mate. For me, I don't know if Santiago's ready yet for the Premier League squad. Not sure if we immediately need him, Blaine Dev, but I'll certainly lean into George's opinion on this. Is there a player in the youth team that plays up, in that top end of the pitch that could be promoted to the first team?
I feel like all of our best young players have been loaned out. When you look at Alfie, like Divine, or I would have said Donnelly. Donnelly's looked really good, but I don't feel like he's ready for the first team. And nor, like I said, Blaine Dev or Santiago. I don't feel like any of those players will be ready for Premier League football because we're not playing any other competitions. It's not like you can bleed them through in the Conference League or even the EFL Trophy. We haven't got that. We've only got big games and much needed points. So we need all the experienced players and all of our best players on the pitch at all times.
Yeah, I agree. But I tell you what, they're watching that game last night. Obviously, when you watch them in the under-21s, you know that you're playing against. I think the way that the Football League trophy works is it's every team from League Two, every team from League One, and then 16 teams from the Premier League who have got Tier 1 academies. Their academy can play, and the same for the Championship. And it's obviously a group stage first. And Colchester are a League Two team, so. But they're
a fairly good team. I was surprised that we beat them, to be fair, because I know a player that used to play for them, only got sold this season. So I used to watch them a fair few times last season. And they're not a bad team. So to see them, our under-21s, put them over 5-0 was a surprise, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think in the Premier League 2, we're top of the league, 4 wins from 4. I think we've scored 15 and only conceded 1. So we've now scored 20 goals in 5 games and only conceded 1. I mean, we can't ask for much more from our youth team. The future is definitely looking positive, and we've got this guy Boskovic coming in. So, like I say, the one thing I don't want to happen here, which always seems to happen at Tottenham, is you end up losing some of these some of the best players that we have because they don't get any minutes. And so that's why I'm urging Tottenham to think smart about, if we're not quite ready, but we have things that we think are already coming through in 18 months' time, don't sign a 22-year-old on a 5-year contract that's going to block that. Let's allow some of these people, some of these sort of talents to materialize and get their opportunity at Tottenham. That's how I would go about it.
I agree. I do feel like we do that a lot of the times, and for the past 5 or 10 years, we haven't really given our youth the opportunity that they deserve. We've had a lot of players come through that just haven't had the chance to shine, and when they have, it's probably been in teams that just haven't really worked. So hopefully going forward, we can start to make the most of this very good generation of youngsters we've got coming through, because it's probably been the best in a while.
100%, mate. And talking about the opportunity that of something that we can hope for better results from in the future in our youth team, we're going to move on now to the North London derby. We've got sort of 2 more sort of major topics to cover over the next sort of 45 minutes. One of them is the North London derby, how we're going to get the result. And then after that, we're going to pivot to, I've got all of Daniel Levy, thanks to Chris Cowlin's wonderful work with a keyboard. He's put out on Twitter all of the Levy responses to some of the questions, and we're going to go through that. get your thoughts on the fan forum situation that happened last night. But before we do, mate, North London derby, it's the biggest game. It's the worst week of my life for my nerves. But usually I feel like I'm a little bit conditioned into thinking it's going to be something that we're not going to get much from. I feel more nervous. I'm feeling more on edge this week. It's a very, very long week because I genuinely think that Tottenham have got a chance to actually get a decent result. And when I say a decent result, I mean the entire result. Take the 3 points home with us. I don't necessarily know how we're going to do it. I've got some ideas, but I want to hear yours. Are you, how are you feeling going into it? Are you confident, or are you, still keeping your feet on the ground?
Just like you, man. It's like I feel those nerves, but it's the same time it's the excitement. Like I'm really looking forward to this game. It's been a long time that we've gone to the Emirates, and you can look at it and say, this is a team that we can go and get some points. At the same time, I do think this is one of the best Arsenal teams we're also going to be coming up against in a very long time. This isn't a team that we can just say, look, we're good and we're going to roll them over, because that's just not how it's going to go. They play very similar football to us, probably at a higher level at this moment in time, because they've been playing it for longer under Arteta. I think so far this season, you've seen that they've struggled at times. They have playing really good, and they've broken teams down, similar to we have, but they have struggled, and you've seen that teams can get at them. And they struggled against Palace, they struggled against Nottingham Forest, and even against United, you saw teams will have chances against them. We just need to make sure that we take them. But I'm really looking forward to it. I do think that we can get a result. I don't know if I'm slowly saying that I don't know if we're going to win. I don't know if I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Like I said, I'm trying to keep my feet on the ground, because I know that this team it's a new team. It's a team that's going to make mistakes, and I do know that it's not going to be smooth sailing all throughout the season. And I don't know if the bump in the road is going to happen now, or it could happen next week in Liverpool. I'm just trying to keep my feet on the ground during these games, but I'm still very slightly confident going into it, like thinking we can come away with something. We're leaving there with something.
I mean, going into it, apart from the news that we had today regarding Perisic, which I do think is a really big hit, to be honest, because I was talking about this in the preview I did this morning. In a world where we're 1-0 down going into the final 15 minutes, which is entirely plausible, entirely possible, it's wonderful to have that double swap on the bench, that option, just like we did against Sheffield United. You bring those two on, changes up the game, makes the other team have to recalibrate because they've got to face a different type of threat now. And it worked against Sheffield United. I don't necessarily think now that the value in bringing on Richarlison is anything like if there was 100% of value when bringing on Richarlison with Perisic, without Perisic in the last 10 minutes, if you're 1-0 down, I mean, who else do you turn to get those crosses? And you made the argument it could have been Udogie. Do you rate Kulusevski to do it? We'll talk about that in a second. Well, my thoughts are that going into the game, apart from the Perisic injury, it was the perfect outcome. The Sheffield United game, as much as I found it frustrating, the result was fantastic, but I thought the way in which we won was the perfect style of victory going into the North London derby, because you could find yourself 1-0 down against Arsenal, and the never give up, the never say die mentality. Then you bring on the two options, it works out, and then you go on and win the game. Like with the boosting Richarlison's confidence, all of that was absolutely perfect. Plus, you got an injury to Martinelli in their last game. Plus, they've got to play tonight. See what happened. We'll see what happened there. So I was thinking, in terms of like perfect preparation, everything was going our way going into the toughest or most nerve-wracking game of the season. I still feel that way, but I do think the Perisic injury is a bit of a dent. But I want to ask you, like, where do you see the game being won or lost, George? Like, is it in specific battles? Is it like certain areas of the pitch, or is it just about who wants it more?
I think it's going to be specific battles. I really do. I feel like there's going to be some key battles on the pitch where we're going to look at these players who can't make mistakes. I do feel like it's going to be in many areas of the pitch. I feel like, especially in the midfield, you're going to be looking at Bissouma against Odegaard. It's going to be a tight battle. Can Bissouma contain Odegaard and his movement? Can he make sure he doesn't get too much space? Because we're looking at Odegaard and Maddison being two of the most creative players in the league. And just like they're going to have problems, can Declan Rice can he handle some Maddison's movement? Can he handle how Maddison's going to play? So it's going to be a lot of key battles, mainly the midfield. I do think is going to control a lot of the game because, as you say, the way that we play, the way that they play, it's very similar. it's going to be, for me, it's what, even just from a tactical standpoint, I feel like even a lot of neutral fans are going to be very excited to watch the game because it's just going to be a very good game. I feel like it's going to be two teams that are going to be going at each other, trying to score goals, and you're going to see a lot of chances, a lot of fight, and it's probably one of the best North London derbies that we're going to see in a while. I really do. So I'm looking forward to it, and the tactical battle in the midfield is going to be very interesting to watch. But I do feel like going forward in that front line, we need to see some sparks. Kulusevski, Son, and whoever plays on the left side are going to have one of their best games because Arsenal's defence isn't no pushovers, and we're not going to probably get as many chances as we would against the likes of Sheffield United. So the chances we do get, we will need to put away.
Couldn't agree more, mate. I think it's going to be one of those games of inches, right? Like, because as much as I think like Saka's had a fairly damp squib start, you know that the guy's going to get 3 or 4 chances. And I think that if we can curtail him, he hasn't been great this season thus far. I don't know if he's got a niggling injury to his ankle or something. People have told me that he's got a bit of an Achilles that he hasn't shaken off. But to me, against Tottenham, he's a master of getting the ball cutting inside and having that crack with his left foot. If we're going to win this game, we have to shut him down. You need Van der Ven and you need Udogie to get back in the transition and make sure that is as curtailed as possible. I personally don't fear Leandro Trossard, maybe to my detriment. I don't think he's as terrifying a prospect as Martinelli. They're different players. Trossard's a very, very competent player. I think he'll drift in and play in the false 9 a little bit more. And so on that basis, I think Pedro Porro will have his... I think Pedro Porro is a smarter player, and I think he's more intelligent enough to get back and figure it out.
I was going to ask you on that point. Do you think, for me personally, I think this might be the game that Emerson should come in? Because when you look at a team like Arsenal, when you're playing, who are going to have tricky wingers on that left side, even if it's not Martinelli, you're looking at Trossard, and then you could look at Emil Smith-Rowe coming on the pitch. They're both very good players that have good dribbling. I think you need someone who's going to stick to their position well and be a very good one-on-one defender, which is Emerson. And I feel like Porro sometimes, a lot of times he finds himself out of position whenever we get caught in the counter attack, and just is a bit bad at tracking his runners, which has caused us to concede goals in so far this season, as well as in pre-season and last season. So I feel like it's something that we could look at changing from a tactical standpoint. Emerson would be a very good player to come in for me.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I'd be interested to see how Ange does this, right? Because Ange is a manager who, always wants to push forward. He doesn't change his tactics regardless of the opposition. And it will be interesting to see whether or not he does make a big decision like bringing in Emerson Royale. I think one of the most understated areas of Emerson Royale's game is his abilities in the air at the back post. I think he's absolutely phenomenal and one of our best assets in that regard. And Pedro Porro is the least strong asset in that particular regard. I don't know whether Arsenal will target the back post in any particular form. I don't think Arsenal would naturally do that. But Arteta is someone who's always looking for vulnerabilities. He's an exploitative type of manager. He's very smart. And so I don't disagree. I think that decision, personally, if we go with Porro or go with Emerson, I think that's going to be a particularly influential area of the game, especially if Bissouma loses the battle to Odegaard. If that Odegaard, the Odegaard kind of enigma that he is, I don't know if he's world class yet, but he's on the verge of getting there. He will be world class very soon. Bissouma and him, that tussle, and obviously right now we're talking about on the defensive side, right? How are we going to handle them before we worry about handling ourselves? The reason why I probably would still stick with Porro, even though I agree with your assessment, I just think that with the ball, we're going to need to be excellent. You made the point, right? Everyone's got to be on their game. It's going to be about taking your chances. I just worry a little bit that if we do get the chance to break in the few moments or the times we do get the chance to break in transition, who would I rather have, be that guy who helps Bissouma, helps Sarr out, comes more narrow 100 times over? It's going to be Porro. And I think if Emerson has the edge over Porro defensively, Porro has the edge over Emerson offensively, where is the bigger drop-off? And I think it's a bigger drop-off Emerson offensively than it is Porro defensively. And on that basis, I personally would probably still rather see Porro play and take the risk against Trossard. Who would you rather see Emerson, would you?
I'd still, me personally, I do think that in the inverted role, when Emerson did play that first game of the season, I was really impressed. I was really impressed with how he played in the inverted role. Maybe when he goes forward, when he's doing the overlapping runs last season and he's playing wing back, it didn't really suit him. But when when he was asked to do the inverted role, I was really impressed. So I would still go with Emerson just because I think defensively we really need to be solid for this game. Even though going forward, I think we'll get a lot of chances. I do think that we just can't underestimate Arsenal at all because I have been watching Arsenal this season. I have been impressed with Arsenal this season, and I hate to say it, but they have been playing really good. And despite the results, a lot of people are saying that they've fallen off. They've not fallen off as much as people say. So we need to bring our A game, and we need to make sure that we go there and perform. Because otherwise, if we don't, they're going to beat us.
In terms of going forward offensively, we've spoken about Porro versus Emerson. You're happy with Emerson. I'll take it. It's fine. Listen, I don't mind either way. I think it's nice to have options, and I'll trust whichever one that Ange decides to go with. The other side, obviously spoken about the threats, and Arsenal have got many of them. To me, I think that our fortune, our access to opportunities is going to depend a lot on how Maddison fares against Declan Rice, and obviously whether if Zinchenko comes in and kind of acts as that sort of inverted fullback, then how Maddison manages to create space. Outside of that, obviously you're going to need Sonny to be able to to get back to his old instinctive self and not overthink things. But I do think that Solomon's got chances against Ben White. I don't think Ben White's the greatest turner. I think that Solomon can jink in and out. I think there's options there. And I think Kulusevski's a lot stronger than Zinchenko. And I think that there's an option. So I don't think that Tottenham are short of opportunities either to create havoc. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
No, definitely not. I do feel like you said, on the left side, that's the side that we're probably going to attack down the most. Where we're going to be able to create a lot of opportunities down. When I mean the left side, I mean Zinchenko's side. Sorry, on Arsenal, I think that's their weakest. Their left, that's their weakest position. Zinchenko defensively against Kulusevski in the 1v1. That's going to be it's going to be very interesting to watch, especially after that last game. I feel like Kulusevski's been cooking his past couple of games. He had a very good international break, and then he came back against Sheffield United. And a lot of people questioned his game, but I thought he was really good. He was relentless and just carried on doing the job that Ange asked him to do. And if he can do that against Arsenal, he's going to create a lot of opportunities. And I feel like he's going to find himself in front of goal. So I feel like we can break down.
Is it Maddison, you saying?
I know, Kulusevski.
Oh, Kulusevski. Oh, I thought Kulusevski had a great game. I didn't. Yeah. I thought he was. I didn't think he was utilized well enough in the show. Well, I was at the game, so it's not this. You don't always get the same viewpoint, but I was a little bit frustrated with Maddison, if I'm honest. In the first half, I felt like there was a lot of pot shots going from distance because someone said the way you beat a low block team is to keep shooting on goal, and I think that too much of that happened in the first half from 25 yards when there were better opportunities to put the ball into space. Kulusevski was often not utilized by Maddison. That frustrated me from where I was looking at the game. But yeah, I thought Kulusevski had a great game. And I'm not just saying that because obviously he finished the winner. But yeah.
No, I definitely think, he had a great game. So building on from that on that right side, if he can do that against Zinchenko, we should be able to break them down. And like you said, highlighted on the other side, Ben White is going to be a player that we can attack. Solomon, he's a very good 1v1 player, and we'll be able to create some noise. But I am looking at that sub bench. I do feel like later on in the game, if Brennan Johnson can come on and make some of those similar runs like he did against Sheffield United, and like we've seen against Arsenal plenty of times throughout the last couple of years, they are susceptible to our counter-attack. You can find that back line because they play very high. A fast player that can get in on those long passes from Bissouma and the likes of Maddison, we can find you'll be able to find a lot of chances. So even later on in the game, I feel like that's another way that we can break them down and create some chances.
Just on that, Brennan Johnson in his debut, I mean, I think he scored with his third and fourth, or the touch that brought the ball down. Absolutely incredible. I saw your tweet about Dele Alli, the comparison, saying if it wasn't for the shade of skin, then this wouldn't be a conversation, which I totally agree with.
100%.
But in terms of him personally as a player, I don't know. I'm not familiar with your take on him. When the signing happened, were you someone that was? I mean, a lot of Tottenham fans were like, "What are we doing here? 50 million quid." My initial thoughts when I first heard about it, I was like, "No, definitely not interested. It's too much money for potential." And then as the kind of week went on, or the 2 weeks went on during that final couple of weeks. I spoke to a few very well-informed Nottingham Forest fans who convinced me that there's so much more to this kid's game than has been as of yet demonstrated. And I softened to it, and I was like, you know what, I'm good, and of course I'll stand by Ange Postecoglou, who's got a better talent ID than I have, or most Tottenham fans. So, you know, if he wants it, then I'm all cool. And I was wildly impressed with the touch, wildly impressed with the finish. All I would say to him is, dude, you know, if you are the second fastest player in the Premier League, maybe at Nottingham Forest you didn't have as quality a player putting those balls into the channel. Now you're going to get more quality coming, like, you know, putting that ball across. You don't need to stand quite so close to the shoulder to give away the cheap offside, because he's that quick, right? So against Arsenal, like, stay a yard or two back, and you'll still be able to outpace Zinchenko, right? So, what's your take on Brennan Johnson?
No, definitely. I'm literally the exact same as you. To be fair, before he came to the Premier League, I was seeing a bit of him in the Championship, just keeping a loose eye, because I know he was on fire. He was scoring loads of goals for Nottingham Forest. And then he came into the Premier League, and I was a bit underwhelmed. Didn't really like to see. Last season, he wasn't that good, but he did play in a bad Nottingham Forest team. And like I said, when he was mentioned with signing us, I wasn't too thrilled by it. Spending 50 million on a player that has scored 8 Premier League goals and didn't really excite me last season. It wasn't something that I was all for. But as the weeks went on and we saw that it's a player that Ange really wanted, I'm all for signing players that the manager want. I'm the type of, like, if our team is backing the manager, we can't complain as fans. That's the way I see it. If the manager really wants him, he's a player that he's going to bring in, and he's going to take. If anything goes wrong, Ange is going to be the man to say, look, he's my signing. He's gonna be at fault for it. So he's a good player. I was very excited to see what he done. Like you say, on the weekend, he was good first touch, good finish. But like I say, I've always liked to see more from him. So if he can do that going forward in the games against the bigger teams, and like I say, he's not an honor for us. He's going to get a lot more chances. He's going to be able to play on the front foot more, and he's going to be able to make those runs a lot more with better players to find him. So he's going to have to get used to this and hopefully make an impact that way, because he has a lot of speed, and coming off the bench against tired legs, he's going to be able to make a big impact for us. Or he should.
100%, mate. Couldn't agree more. And I think it might be a situation where, if you know, by hook or by crook, we find ourselves 1-0 up or a goal advantage, 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, plus with that injury time that you never quite know how much it's going to be, and Arsenal are throwing, you know, gung ho towards it because they don't want to lose at home. He is the perfect guy to bring off the bench to attack down that right hand side or through the middle in that scenario, because I think that when we do win that ball back and in transition, they'll be so committed. There'll be so many opportunities, and I really look forward to seeing more from him. And again, it's options, and I keep talking about it on this channel that Ange loves tactical options. So good things to come. Just a couple of super chats quickly, guys, before we get to them and before we move on to the next stage of this show, which is the answers to the Levy fan forum. I want to get George's opinions on all those as well. Only the Levy questions. We're going to go through the other questions for Sonny and for Ange on another show, but Levy's given some interesting insights. But before we get there, Nana Hotspur, big up Nana Hotspur, saying, as long as we give it all, I'm happy. Appreciate that, mate. I completely agree, Nana Hotspur. I think that, you know, I just want to see us play well and go for it. You know, things happen. Things happen in the North London derby, and hopefully the referee will stay out of the way. But I do appreciate the super chat. Frankly, Tottenham as well. Big up, Frankly. I hope you're okay, mate. I think we all won't realise how much the Perisic loss will affect us long term. We had that option with Perisic and Richie to come on. Arsenal has not impressed me so far. Spanky time, Arsenal. Yeah, look, I mean, the Perisic injury for sure is going to affect us. I hope that we can figure out something for the January window if there's enough money. But at the same time, January is very difficult. It is what it is. Look, we were going to get injuries. Look, without being horrible, it's a horrible injury for him. I'd rather that than an injury to someone who plays 80, 90 minutes week in, week out, as much as that may not sound nice to Perisic fans. You know, if you're going to get an injury, you need to sort of pick your battles a little bit. Thank you very much, Frankly. I really appreciate it, mate. And we are going to move on. But guys, please smash the like button. I don't know what likes we're on. I can't see, but we should be on a lot more. Really appreciate your support for the channel. Right, we got to move on, George, to some of these quotes from from, or some of these things from the fan forum last night. Let's start with the European Super League. 1 second. Sorry. Chris Cowlin, I want to say shout out to Chris. Thank you, Chris, for doing the God's work and putting these into tweet format for me, mate. So I can borrow them, steal them from your Twitter account and read through them. So, George, I want to talk to you about this one. The European Super League. Daniel Levy was asked if the European Super League came along again, would you consider it? And is there a buyback clause with Bayern for Harry Kane? His answer was, firstly, under the new rules of the Premier League, we can't consider leaving the Premier League without their consent and the FA's consent. All I would say to you is that we always act in the best interests of this club. And I stand by the decision that we made, that we were prepared to have a conversation regarding the European Super League. It was not leaving the Premier League. It was about forming a new European league that would have continued in the same time as the Premier League. But we felt that it was a disaster for a lot of reasons. But I stand by my decision that I was acting in the best interests of the club. And regarding the Harry Kane thing, he says there is a buyback clause. We'll come back to the Harry Kane thing in a second. Regarding the European Super League, mate, he's making out like it was just a conversation. It was just a conversation, right? And it was in best interest. It wasn't a conversation. We'd signed up to it. It wasn't for a lot of reasons. It was for one reason, fan revolt, that he walked away from it. But look, is it an inevitability, mate? Is it an inevitability anyway? He's basically saying that he wouldn't necessarily walk away again. He can't legally do it without the Premier League's consent, but he's still trying to act in the club's best interest. What's your take on the Super League concept?
Do you know what? I was actually for the Super League when it did happen. I didn't really mind it. I'm all for my team playing against the biggest clubs in world football. So I wasn't too against it. That's literally the way I looked at it. Yeah. I was excited and just knowing that my team's a part of it. I was just running we're one of the biggest teams. I was just running all the banter against, especially the likes of West Ham fans and so on. Like it was the best time. So, but Levy's comments are just very defensive. It's what you expect from Levy. He's never going to walk away or look bad at a decision he's made. He's always going to support everything he's done. And just the way to play it down that much is very Levy-like. It's just extremely business and like lawyer answer. Just, I stand by my decision. It was for the best interest of the club. I'll just continue to repeat that. But
yeah, the only thing I'd say about this, right, is I wasn't there last night. I have watched it. And I feel like the answer he gave to that particular question feels a little bit defensive, like you're saying, right? Like he's not going to sit there and acknowledge any blame or guilt. And he's trying to kind of pull the wool over people's eyes by saying, you know, it was a number of reasons why we didn't go. It was only a conversation. Those things are clearly untrue. It was one reason why we went in. It was one reason why we pulled out. And it wasn't a conversation. There was more to it than that. To me, like I feel like in other ways and in other answers that he's given last night, he's starting to at least come across like he's acknowledging responsibility, pressure, mistakes that have been made. But with this particular one, it doesn't seem like he's willing to just come out and say, look, I was trying to do what was best for the club, but ultimately you guys disagreed, as did, you know, and so we had to rethink. And, you know, if you guys don't want to do it, like there's another way that he could have answered it that could have come across a little bit more sincere, that still played well with the fans, that he listened to the fans, but instead it feels like he's kind of trying to dance around the truth, around how it was, and I find that it's a little bit disingenuous myself. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Jules.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's just, to be fair, like I said, it's always going to be disingenuous from Levy, and I feel like he's always going to protect himself, and he's always going to, even when we get on to some of his other comments about some of the other things, you can just tell it's very defensive, and it's very, as I say, it's always in the best interest for the club. He thinks he's for the best interest of the club, but it's not really for the best interest of the fans. It's in the bench. It's in Levy's best interest. That's what he's pretty much saying most of the time.
Yeah. The next one we've got, this is regarding getting the manager right. So Daniel Levy said, there was a lot of pressure on me to bring in somebody that was a big name. I just wanted somebody who understood our DNA, who play attacking football that would give young players a chance, believe in the academy, would build a relationship with the fans, and understand the team resources that we have and don't have as a club. Oh, sorry, the resources that we do have and we don't have as a club, and be part of a team. And I have to say, is a breath of fresh air. I'm going to just, before I bring you on this one, Jules, I'm also just going to bring in the other kind of managerial related kind of conversation that he had. Spurs channel Daniel Levy on Mourinho and Conte, says Chris Callan. Maybe you'll be surprised by my answer, but I want to win as much as everybody else. But the frustration of not winning and the pressure from maybe some players and from a large element of the fan base that we need to win, we need to spend money, we need to have a big manager, we need to have a big name, and it affected me. I had gone through a period where we'd almost won. With Maurizio, we went through some very good times. We didn't quite get there, but we came very close, and we had a change in strategy. The strategy was, let's bring in a trophy manager. We did it twice, and look, you have to learn from your mistakes. They're great managers, but maybe not for this club. For what we want to play in a certain way, and if that means it has to take a little bit longer to win, maybe it's the right thing for us. That's why bringing Ange in was, from my point of view, the right decision. And then, sorry, I did this in the wrong order. And then he's saying about the pressure to bring someone in, and he suddenly changed tact, and he wants to have someone that understands the DNA, understands the need for the youth, understands what we have and what we don't have. A lot of slide digs, by the way, at Conte, dug in there, that Conte was saying one thing to him and another thing to other people. I mean, lots to chew through there, George. I'll let you go through it how you want. He's basically saying, we've gone in a different direction, but half of the reason why I went in the first direction was because of you, the fans.
Yeah, the fans. Yeah. So, do you know what? I do respect some of his answer. He did. He literally went on and just admitted he did try to go with what the fans said, and which he probably wasn't wrong in doing. After Pochettino, there was a lot of pressure because that team failed. It was, we need to win. This team we need to get something out of the team, and we did try to go for that win. Now we was all for it. I don't think any fan when Mourinho come in was against it. We was all excited for it when it first happened, but it's just one of those things. Like Levy, as I said, is very defensive still. He's trying to blame it on the fans. He's trying to put it all to us and say, look, I tried to do what you guys wanted. It didn't work out. So now I'm doing what I wanted. And now it's working. He's basically trying to take the credit for it yet again and say, look, like I wanted to go for Ange. I wanted him to bring the identity back. And really, it's what we've wanted this whole time. We always know what we've wanted. Tottenham fans want to play this attacking football. We want a manager that can build a project. And we want something that can be a long-term future for the club. And it's always been a part of Tottenham's identity before Levy, and it will be there after Levy. And it's something that he took away from us for a while. And we need it back. But going back to what he's saying about Ange, and he's saying bringing everything back, I do think that he is right in saying that Ange is probably the perfect guy for the appointment. I'm looking forward to seeing the years that he's going to bring forward. But yeah, man, Levy's just he's a funny character. I love the way he loves to throw the blame everywhere else by himself.
Yeah, look, I mean, so I personally think he actually came across okay. I don't think there was that many questions that were like really, really strongly worded towards him, but there was only half an hour of fan questions. The rest of the whole show was obviously orchestrated to a degree. And I think that a lot of the questions that were orchestrated gently covered the topics that allowed him to navigate the answers in the way that he wanted, rather than leaving it open to people to come out with some direct, for people that feel differently and strongly about Daniel Levy. For me personally, though, like I do agree with him to a degree that there was the need after Pochettino, because we didn't quite get there, to then go and get the last piece of the puzzle in terms of manager that could get you over the line. And there was that kind of pressure. I've said it 100 times. I get pelters for it, but I think that getting to the Champions League final at the stage that we did, where we were at when we were at it, having just spent all the money on the stadium and the training ground, but didn't have the rest of the ecosystem in place, I personally think that we outperformed to our detriment. If we had gone out of the Champions League at the quarterfinal stage that year against Manchester City, which we were only a handball away from happening, I think the expectations would have been lower. I think that the curve would have been more reasonable. But because we got to the final and then we didn't quite make it, I think Pochettino's words after, and even in the pre-match conference, didn't help. He started to kind of believe his own sort of believe his own hype or believe the hype about him. Everything kind of then tumbled back down because we weren't prepared for that next stage. And then Daniel Levy, foolishly, to his detriment, thought that the only thing we needed to do was bring in someone who was a here now, ready now manager. And I think there's so much more to a successful team than that, and we weren't ready in other ways. I do think that he is at least acknowledging on some level that there were mistakes made. Whether or not he's saying 100%. That I was led and pressured by fans and players to go in certain directions, I don't know. If you're a leader of a big organization, should you be celebrated for listening to your stakeholders, or should you be chastised for not having the gusto to do what you want to do, to do it your way? I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but in any event, he went that way and it didn't work. And now we're back to doing it the traditional method, which is, playing good football and utilizing, a strong youth system. And I'm all for that right now, but I feel like we've wasted the last 5 years. I don't know if that's your kind of summary.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like the last 5 years has just been a waste. Like, it's just been us just dilly-dallying and just going up and down. And pretty much now we're back to, like, say, a proper project, and it feels like we're back to the way Tottenham need to be. It just, we need the right investment. So far it's been all right, but I don't know if you're going to get on some of the more other quotes, but regarding the investment in the team, I just feel like we have been lacking on that front. And the way that they put on, especially regarding the ticket prices, and he threw it on to the fan, like, we need to maximize revenue in all ways so we can invest it in the team. We're still not seeing the investment in the team that we should have been seeing, because we've been in the stadium for 5 years and we're still investing at the same level of the likes of West Ham, Nottingham Forest, and teams that are on at the same level of us. We're one of the biggest clubs in world football, one of the richest clubs in world football, and it's just not adding up.
Yeah, so before I bring that up, because I do have the naming rights and the ticket pricing stuff, I did a video a couple of days ago that looked at the minutes of the FAB, the Fan Advisory Board meeting, and in that they actually showed the net spend over the last 8 years or 6 years since we've joined since we built the stadium. I think it's 860 million or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but circa 850 million in spend and about 220 million in player sales. So we're net about £100 million a year over the last 6 years in net spend, of which, of course, you have to factor in 2 years of COVID. And when you think that Tottenham's revenues over even in our most profitable year last year, I think it was, or one of them was 440 million. We've made revenues of about 400 million on average every year over the last 6. We spend already about 50% of our revenue on salaries. And then on top of that, 100 million quid a year in net spend on players, which is 25% of the revenue as well. So we're kind of spending about 70 to 75% of our entire revenue on the cost of staff or the acquisition of them, which, is in line with what you're allowed to do with FFP and not a lot more. And so I don't personally subscribe to the idea that there's other clubs like Chelsea are taking this longer term view where they'll just throw money at it, that they'll take the ownership money and spend money that the club doesn't generate. And then they have to find ways through moving money around on FFP to be able to make it look like it makes sense. But I personally don't subscribe to this idea that a football club should have to live off credit to the owner. I think you should be self-sustainable. And I think that's what Tottenham have argued that they are, but also at the same time spending that money. So I'm not someone who personally thinks that we're doing all that stuff the wrong way. I think that the inflation in the transfer market created by things like Saudi Arabia is an issue that means that you only get a Brennan Johnson now for 50 million quid, and 50 million quid is like 13% of Tottenham's entire revenue. So you can't really spend that much more every year if you're still going to work within your means, which personally I think is not something to
I feel like one of the biggest problems over that last 6 years, like I said, is the players' outgoings. We haven't been able to sell players over the past 6 years as to why we can't bring them in. Because if you look at other clubs, like say our counterparts like Chelsea, maybe not Arsenal, but Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, you look at their outgoings, they're probably looking at about 600, maybe 700 million in that same time frame of just outgoings into their team as to why they can spend so much. And our
Yeah,
ability to not get rid of players, which we're still suffering from now, is
correct.
one of the main reasons why we can't sell them. And 200 million pounds bringing in, and is that including the Harry Kane money?
Yeah, that includes the Harry Kane money. So I think it was 230
That's
million
crazy.
over the last 6 years. Yeah, it's mad.
So it's pretty much 100. Let's take away from that 130 million from God knows how many players in 6 years is crazy. Like
Hmm.
I- no top club should be bringing in that amount. That's like you say in today's market, that's 3 or 4 players. So really and truly, that is one side of our game that we need to up in order
100%.
to progress.
I completely agree with you, mate. If Tottenham Hotspur were better at player acquisition or being able to find ways to dilute your misspend better than what we have done, then I think we'd be in a far better position. But I think we're still dealing with legacy issues of Steve Hitchin. And also, I think that there's variables outside of our control, like bankrupt Europe. You know, there's only in every league in Europe, because of their way that their finances, their pyramid is structured, only 2 or 3 teams in any of those leagues get the money. Everybody else gets very little.
Yeah.
And the players that we have, the teams that do have the money, don't want. And so we're struggling with the inability to offload players because there's no secondary market at our level. But again, that comes back to our own inability to identify sort of good players. But on that note, he did say, where's my notes here? So on the ticket pricing, he said, we've agreed we will do a long-term strategy paper on ticketing generally. It's not just about pricing, it's about access, away ticketing, membership. There will be a review. He also said, with regards this, well, let's start with the stadium naming rights. He was asked about the naming rights, if it's a missed opportunity for revenue, and would that money have prevented the rise in matchday tickets? And he said, there's a couple of questions here. So on naming rights, it's quite a complicated process. Unfortunately for us, we got interrupted by COVID. To do a naming rights deal, it's got to be done with the company coming to visit the stadium and experience it. So that interrupted the process. Since then, we've taken the decision that as much as we would like the right sponsor, it's really important to build our name globally. And all the events that we've had in the stadium have just enlarged the profile of this club. So for us, we want to find the right sponsor in the right sector at the right price. And in the meantime, unless we get that, we won't put a name on the stadium. We'd rather just have Tottenham Hotspur. In answer to the second question about pricing, ticket pricing is an area I know everyone is sensitive to, and so are we. We haven't put ticket prices up until recently, despite the fact that they've been fixed for over 4 years. That's our general ticket prices. Premium prices have gone up. We're all facing increased costs. We've absorbed as much as we can, but you're right. If we had other sources of income, maybe we wouldn't have had to do it, but we are in a highly competitive industry, and everything we do is to maximize the income to invest in the team. Look, I know you're probably going to disagree with me on this one, but I 100% agree with his answer. I've been saying it for months and months and months on the channel that if you sell your naming rights to Mercedes-Benz or Google or whatever else, there's a reason why they want that brand exposure. And there's a reason why Tottenham Hotspur are the fastest growing supported team in America across all sports. And in my belief, it's because when Beyonce goes there, when the NFL go there, etc., how much does it cost in America to have a 30-second advert for an NFL weekend or the Super Bowl? It costs an absolute fortune, millions and millions of dollars. Every time the London series comes to the UK, every 5 seconds, every 5 minutes, there's a graphic on the screen saying the Bills versus the Chargers at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, right? It's a money generator in and of itself, the NFL thing, but not selling the naming rights to me has far higher revenue indirect. It might be difficult to calculate, but the latency of the conversion in terms of growing the supporter base, growing the awareness of Tottenham Hotspur as a club in the market that you want to be known in, which is America, which is the fastest growing Premier League supported area in the world. For me, I think it's a win-win. When the right company comes along and pays the right money, fine. Until then, it's not like we're wasting the opportunity. We're still gaining things in the absence of a naming rights deal. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do agree. I do feel like the impact it has made has been massive for us. And we are, like you say, are one of the fastest growing teams. But just for me, I don't really. I agree with the naming rights deal side of things, but it's just the ticket pricing side of things. I feel like I say, when we
Jordan.
see.
So sorry, mate. Can you give your answer? I'll be 10 seconds. I just got to open the
No
door for
worries.
some.
Yeah. No, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, so I believe that on the ticket pricing side of things, I do feel like it's just we're charging too much money at this rate. Come on, we're the highest priced team in the league for any of their tickets, home, away, well not away, but home tickets, season price tickets. It's just, and our investment isn't matching up to that. So when you're at this level of a team and your price at such high rate, our investment needs to match up. And all I want to see is I want to see this team have a heavy investment. I want to see this team progress, and I want to see this our manager backed. I like we have had this so far this season, but in January, we want to see further signings, want to see a heavy investment and not going for the cheap player. Because far too many times we go for player B, player C, option D. We need to be going for our number one targets and can't be letting them go to our rivals or to other teams just because we don't want to pay the extra 5 or 10 million. Because, like we say, we are one of the biggest teams in the world, one of the fastest growing teams in the world, and one of the highest generating teams in the world. So it's something that I expect of a club our level.
I did hear your answer, believe it or not. Ticket pricing. I'm out of breath. The ticket pricing thing. Listen, again, I know that it's a very sensitive topic. I've been accused of being all sorts of names for not agreeing with the masses on it. I personally, because I come from like an economic background, I personally kind of come at it from a bit more of a.
You understand it on a business point of view, and I do see that. Yeah, I do see that.
And but listen, in an ideal world, I love the fact that Tottenham Hotspur are generating as many revenue streams as they can from things that don't affect Tottenham Hotspur fans. Like if there's a way that we could have events at the stadium every day for rugby, for darts, for golf, whatever, if there was a way that you could get the average person in the street that's not the Tottenham Hotspur fan to fund Tottenham Hotspur, I'm all for it. But with the inflation in player trading being or superseding the cost of living by such a ridiculous amount because of Saudi Arabia and other elements, I feel like whilst you can divest the responsibility away from Tottenham fans, you still can't completely remove it. And I think that Tottenham fans also need to, just face the reality of what it costs to put events on these days. But I know that that's an unpopular take. It is what it is.
I feel like you can see, like you say, when you can look at it from so many different points of view, and I don't feel like there's a wrong take to it because at the end of the day, I'm a match going fan. I'm still going to go to the games whether the price is too high or whether the price is too low because I want to see my team play. And quite frankly, at this moment in time, when the team's playing good football, a lot of us fans aren't going to complain when we're spending our money because we're having a good day out. But when our team's playing bad, that's when it's going to become the hot topic and it's going to become the big news. But yeah, again, so
yeah, 100%.
Right now, we can't complain. I'm just giving us the smiles on our face.
How much? Yeah, I don't know how much Ange Postecoglou is getting paid, but I don't think it's anything like what Conte was getting paid. And in terms of the kind of whether the juice is worth the squeeze from Daniel Levy's perspective, there's a reason why it took 6 years to do one of these things. He waited until everyone had a bit more of a smile on their face, right? So I hope Ange is getting paid what he's worth because Conte didn't. Conte got paid more than he was worth, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
I want to move this one to you, Daniel Levy. This is about the role of the academy. I guess this comes back to Ange as well. I should have brought this up with the kind of hiring of Ange thing. Daniel Levy, Jordan, on what do you see the role of the academy as? His answer was one of the reasons why we asked Ange to become our manager is that he believes in the academy. The relationship between the first team and the academy is really important. This is a club where we as fans get a great thrill out of seeing a player coming out of the academy and into the first team. We want to see that flourish. And I think that over the years, we've got some very good players in our academy, and we'll see them coming into the first team. We haven't seen enough of it over the entirety of the Daniel Levy era. From what I've heard, they are now making the under-21s play the same system which is new and good to see. And obviously, we're doing well in the youth team. Do you expect Ange to give or what is your expectancy on seeing youth team players get minutes maybe this season's more difficult because there's just not the opportunity. But over the next, let's say this season and next season is, what's your sort of expectation?
I'd say this season I probably don't, unless we have a lot of injuries. I don't expect to see any academy players coming through unless they're just shining on another level and they're just ready for that first team football. I just don't feel like this season we can afford to put any of them in there in any of the bigger games. Maybe if we're later on into the season and I don't know, we're already secure top four and we're not really playing for first, then we can afford to not even drop points, but just afford to experience a few things out. But next season, I do expect to see when we have Europe, when we have the EFL trophy, when we have FA Cup, and we're battling on all fronts and we have more competitions, we definitely need to start to utilize the youngsters, especially the ones that will be coming back from loan, the likes of Dane Scarlett, the likes of Alfie Devine, because they're two players that once they start hitting 2021, that's when they need to start seeing first team football. Because if they don't, I feel like you have a few players, and it always happens to us, they start to get around 22, 23, and the players start to demand first team football, and then we have to look at selling them. And for our best talents, it's something that we've always done. We've let go of them over these past couple of years. The likes of Marcus Edwards, the likes of Noni Madueke, talented players that are now playing at big clubs, and whether they're doing well or not, they're still had a good impact on their team. So we need to try and utilize it as much as we can. And as I say, the likes of Devine, the likes of Scarlett, the likes of Jamie Donnelly, Dorrington, they're good players that I'm looking forward to see over the next 2-3 years if they can get the opportunity and make the most of it.
Do you think is there any particular player that is, in your opinion, that is touted as being the next whatever, that probably, from what you're seeing, that may not make it, whether it's Scarlett, Harvey White, Alfie Devine, or even one of these guys that are kind of pitching through now? Is there any of these names that we're hearing about being ready to think maybe not?
I don't think but I know a lot of people subscribed to Troy Parrott maybe a year or two ago. People were quite excited about him. I don't feel like he's good enough to come anywhere near the first team, nor Harvey White. I feel like Harvey White, from what I've seen of him, is just, he looks like Harry Winks. He's literally another version of him, just very tidy on the ball, can put in a nice little free kick every now and then, but he's not going to be a player that we can look to step up in our first team. Of the other names that I've mentioned, the likes of Scarlett, I do feel like he was a bit underwhelming last season because he started off very well at Portsmouth and he was scoring a few goals, and then he just trailed off and disappeared completely. And I don't know, now he's gone to Ipswich with a manager that supports him, is very excited to have him there. So hopefully we can see more of him. But if I don't see anything from Scarlett this season, if I'm totally honest, I would be looking at potentially he's going to have another loan or moving him on, because we need to see more from him. He's playing in the Championship, and that is somewhere where players of his age usually show whether they're ready for the Premier League or not. The likes of Brennan Johnson, the likes of Tammy Abraham, the likes of Ivan Toney, when they're all younger, all scoring 18, 19, 20 goals there. So there's no reason why the likes of Dane Scarlett shouldn't be.
Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. Last, I think we've got a lot. Let's have a look. One more. Is there one more or two more? Let's have a look. I've got the cup run thing. Happy is this one? Chris Cowlin, again, thanks, Chris. Daniel Levy on what does the club need to support Ange, or what does the club need to do to support Ange for a proper cup run? His answer is we need to provide all the conditions, whether that be appropriate players, facilities, the fans need to get behind the team, and we all need to be as one. That gives you the best chance of winning, but Ange has won things at other clubs, so maybe it's a question for Ange and what we need to do. And I don't have his answer. I don't have his answer in front of me, but I can tell you that he essentially said, this club is bigger than just a cup runs. We should be competing on all fronts for absolutely everything, not just cups. I mean, you love him. You absolutely love him, don't you? Like, he always gets the right answer.
100%. But we do remember one of our old favourite managers said the exact same thing in Pochettino. He said, we're bigger than a cup run. We're bigger than the FA Cup and Carling Cup. We want to go and focus on the Champions League and Premier League. And that is essentially the downfall of Pochettino. Was he used to give away those cup runs, throw all the rubbish teams in there, go out, and then we don't perform in the other trophies. Right. I do subscribe to what he says. We are bigger than a cup run. We're definitely bigger than just winning a cup and finishing 5th or 6th. I do want to focus on playing in the Champions League and playing and competing in the Premier League. But a cup run is needed. We haven't had one in 15 years now. I was a kid when we had one. It's been such a long time. So I'm looking forward to. I need this team. We need some joy. We need to see a trophy and a cup run this season or next season, whether it's an FA Cup, Carling Cup, will be big for us. It will be a big trophy. It will be a big win. It's just something that we can get over, and it's one of those things, just a chip off the shoulder. Because if Ange can win a trophy, it's a big relief for this fan base, because now there's not that pressure to win a trophy. It's now, let's build a team that can win a title, and it's not going to be all about winning an FA Cup or Carling Cup.
I just feel like every time he's asked about the cups, Ange, especially with regards to the Fulham thing, he's come up with 3 different narratives now. The first time it was, why did you play the B team? Well, if I don't, how do I know if they're A team or B team unless I see them play? Right, which I had a problem with, because he basically made the A team the B team. So how are you going to know if these players are good enough for the A team if you're only ever playing them with B team players? Didn't like the answer. Then he goes on TalkSport and he changes the narrative and says, I don't want us just to win the cup and then finish 10th. Right?
Yeah,
but no one was suggesting that. And now he's saying, we're bigger than all of it. We can go and do everything. Like, I don't like, he seems like he's kind of flip-flopping between answers regarding the cup and its priority. And I don't know if that's because he has been told, just like probably most of the other managers that have gone before him, that the cups are not where the money is, right? The cups are, you get 1 million, you get more money probably for the Tottenham Hotspur revenue from one home cup game than you probably do from actually winning the cup in prize money. Whereas qualifying for the Champions League gets you 50, 60 million. And probably when Ange and Levy had a frank heart-to-heart or whatever at the start of the season, Daniel Levy probably said, look, if you want the money to buy the best players, we need the most money. If you really want to compete, then Champions League is where it's at. So, take that, how you want to take it. But the cups are not that important in terms of, if you've got ambitions to win the title, what's that going to take? Well, Daniel, it's going to take the best players. Okay, well, if you want the best players, then we need the most money. So you've got to figure out a way to get 4th or 5th, because that's where the money comes from. But I think he's just struggling to kind of find a way to say that without saying it, maybe.
I do think that he does want to compete on all fronts, unlike Pochettino. I don't feel like he did set out. I do feel like he realized he did make a mistake with that team. And I feel like it's one that he'll definitely learn from. And in the FA Cup, he won't go and set out such a B team per se and rest too many players. Because I'm not being funny, a lot of these players are used to playing twice a week anyway. Like we're a European club. A lot of these players are used to playing Champions League, Premier League, or Europa League, Premier League. So playing in the Carling Cup in midweek and playing games midweek and cup competition shouldn't be a problem. So rotating squads or rotating players in the cup competition, I don't think it's something he'll do as much.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I think that's about it, guys. With regards to the Levy questions, I mean, there was a couple more, but I feel like I've screwed up by bringing them out of order, and now if I put them back in, we're gonna have to go back in time and stuff. So can't do that. But listen, we're at the 1 hour 25-minute mark. It's a little bit longer than I was hoping to do, 1 hour 15. But you know what? There's always a bit of give or take with these things. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's come into the comment section. Jaws, mate, second, not your debut, your return on the show. First of many Wednesday afternoons. Guys, I haven't thought of a name for this show yet, but I'll be thinking of a name, and we're going to be doing it every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So I want you to lock it into your diaries. Hit the notification bell on the channel if you've subscribed but haven't belled it. Hit the subscribe button if you've done none of that. Hit the like button if you haven't, because that's just taking your shoes off like you go into someone's house. And last but by no means least, I want you to follow George on Twitter. His link is right there. Absolutely smash it. George, where else can people find you, mate? Where do you go during the week?
I'm here, there, and everywhere. To be honest, if I'm not here with you, you'll see me on the terrace on Monday or Thursday on one of their shows, or you may see me on Never a Foul, or you can see me on. And you just catch me on YouTube here, there, and everywhere. If not, just follow my Twitter. Follow me on TikTok, Do Right Diaries, and that's where I'm usually retweeting or saying where I am. But no, Sean, big up, man. Thank you for having me on this show. It's been a very good first show. Thank you, and I'm very proud to be back. But you guys, make sure you do really smash up the like button, man. Sean's been putting in the hard work, and it's just something that we need to do. Just keep smashing the like button. And
listen, guys, I want to also just let you know right now, I'm not sure I should be saying it right now because it's not been official yet, but there is going to be a Sunday show. A Sunday show that's it's gonna traditionally be, it's gonna pivot back and forth between my channel and Henry Wright's channel. It's gonna be either earlier on Sunday normally at about 6:45 until about 8 o'clock, 7 till 8, something like that. or it's going to be later, depending on when Tottenham play and if they play on a Sunday. All that stuff will come out in the fashion. But this particular Sunday is the debut show. It's going to be myself, Henry. It's going to be George as well, plus Deji. You might know Deji as well from Never a Foul fame, from One Touch TV. Awesome guy as well. And there'll be one or two other guest appearances going on throughout the season. But yeah, Sunday nights, it's going to be, generally speaking, earlier or later, depending on when Tottenham play. But this Sunday, because of just circumstances. Also, sorry, how dare I forget, Irish Hotspur Dave is also going to be a part of the team. And he's going to be joining us. So it's 8 o'clock this Sunday. And it's going to be on Henry Wright TV as the debut. And then from then on, we'll let you know every week. But yeah, lock into that. It's going to be an awesome Sunday show. I've been waiting to do it for a long, long time. And it's going to be absolutely superb. Guys, we're going to leave it there. George, massive shout out, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the comment section. Thank you to the super chats from Blaine Dev, from Nana Hotspur, and from Frankly Tottenham. You're going to see another video coming out from me this evening, guys, at about 9:30, just after the football. And then you've got 2 or 3 videos coming out tomorrow, guys. If you do watch my show, if you just dial into my channel every day, and you're just looking for the one video, because you know I'm usually a one video guy with Bugsy, that's going to be upped. It's going to be upped. I've got a little bit more time in my diary these days, so I'm going to be doing at least 2 videos a day, whether it's a video upload and a stream, or whether it's 2 uploads, or whether it's 2 streams. Just keep a lookout, keep dialing in, and you'll see the access. Please smash the like button and go and follow George on Do Rag Diaries. Oh, is it? Hang on. Is it Do Rag Diaries?
Do Rag Diaries is just that's my TikTok. That's just my TikTok. But people can find my Twitter and my TikTok. It's all linked together. So
it's all linked, mate. It's all linked. Wonderful stuff. Cheers again, George, mate. Guys, we're going to leave it there. Like, subscribe, and follow, and all that stuff. And as always, come on, you Spurs. Nice one, George.